Welcome to Hope Shot Recovery. I'm Sonia. I'm so glad that you can join me tonight. Tonight, I'm so excited to bring my friend Rob Meredith on. He is a recovery creator and an advocate for everybody in recovery. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Rob.
Of course, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so Rob's going to tell his story tonight. You could find him on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. He is all over the place, and he's such an inspiration to people in recovery. So tell me a little bit about your backstory. Like, how was your childhood?
So my childhood was really good. It was just me and my mom. Actually, my childhood is really where it all stems from, but uh, my mom struggled with finding love, so she was, either getting married or just in a relationship with somebody, which is very normal. And she, you know, she was in this one relationship when I was younger. I don't really talk about this much. For some reason, it just popped in my head. But when I was like, I think I was like 8 years old, I was in elementary school. She was dating this guy, and he used to like throw shoes at my back to wake me up and like make me do push-ups and all this stuff. So that was probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me as a kid, where he abused me, but my mom stuck up for me and kicked him right out of the house as soon as she found out that was going on. So I look at my childhood like it was like a really good childhood, because my mom always made sure that if something were to go wrong, it's like life, it happens, but she always was there to protect me, so even to this day, I mean, she still shows up for me 24/7. And then when I was 14, I think I was 14, maybe 13, me and my mom were living in my grandmom's basement, and I found out my dad was gay. And we were watching a Lifetime movie, and the guy got caught cheating on his wife with a guy. And my dad always had this guy, John, sleep over, right? Like that was his boyfriend. But to me, it was just innocent. Like I had friends sleep over and stay in the bed with me or whatever. And so I just thought he was sleeping over, And then I watched that movie, and it all clicked. And I looked at my mom, and I was like, Mom, is dad gay? And she was like, you're gonna have to talk to him about that. I said, I'm not talking to him about that. Like me and my dad back then didn't really have that type of relationship. I would see my dad maybe like twice a month on the weekends, and he suffers from alcoholism and addiction and struggled with that for years. So it wasn't easy for him to come out, back then. So being in Baltimore City, and the times back then were a lot different. Nowadays, it's completely, it's really much more acceptable. It's not as judged, and yeah, I mean, that made me run for myself, because I thought that I was going to be, gay, and I didn't want to be gay, because I didn't like boys like that, which led to me experimenting with a boy, to then really running from myself for years and years and years, and never really talking about it until I got clean at 27. I mean, I've been clean other times, but that time at 27, that's when everything came out. I got rid of all my deep, dark secrets and wasn't afraid of judgment or any. I mean, I was a little bit afraid of judgment, but I really didn't care, because I just knew that that was the only thing that I hadn't done yet. Like, this has got to be it. This doesn't work. I don't know what's going to work. It was the only thing that I held on to every time that I got clean. But yeah, I would say that my childhood was probably a little bit different than most, but it was good, because my mom, she did whatever it took.
Yeah, I actually relate to a lot of that. My mom very much so protected me. It was me and my mom growing up. She's a single mom. I got to see my dad on the weekends or every other weekend. So I definitely connect with that. So when did you decide to start experimenting with drugs?
So me and my mom lived in Pennsylvania at the time. It was the first house my mother ever bought in Pennsylvania, Ridley Park, PA. Was in this little cul-de-sac. I had a huge group of friends, and I started first with cigarettes, right? Like sneaking my mom's cigarettes, and then I went to weed, and then drinking. But I was probably about I was probably about 15. It was like a year and a half after I found out about my dad. I was diagnosed with ADHD at a young age, so I was on Concerta, Ritalin, Adderall, Strattera, anything. They put me on anything and everything. The two things that they kept me on the longest were Concerta and Adderall. Those were for years and years and years. So, experimenting with drugs weren't like, it wasn't a hard thing to do. It wasn't like, oh, I'm so scared to do it, because I woke up every single morning and relied on a pill to help me be a certain way throughout the day as a child. So I knew that, as soon as I smoked a cigarette, it gave me that feeling that it would get rid of the feelings that I was feeling, because we were getting ready to move into another guy's house. She was getting married again, which she's still with this guy. It's been a long time now. They do really well together. And he's really stuck up for me a lot. In the beginning, he kind of didn't like me. Of course, nobody did. I didn't like me. I was a raging drug addict. But yeah, it started out with weed. It progressed to alcohol and weed. And then it progressed to Vicodin, because I found Vicodin in the cabinet. My mom gave me a Xanax when I was younger to get on a plane, because I was freaking out. I was like 16 years old. She gave me a little blue football. And I was like so happy. I remember it. It was the first time I've ever been on a plane. We're going to see my grandfather in Orlando. She gives me a Xanax. My dad's freaking out, like, because they're on the phone together. And he's like, "You gave him a blue football? That knocks me out," And I'm like hyped, ready to go. Like, it didn't. At that moment, my mom should have realized that there was something wrong, because I was just on the plane. This guy was freaking out, and I'm just like, we could die right now. I don't even care, like, I'm like, oh, whatever, it sounds like we might be going down, like just messing around and messing with this guy. And I just felt that like sense of relief. Like, I didn't worry about nothing. And that was like my aha at that moment, but it wasn't like where I needed it every single day yet. It wasn't like, it was just like this, sense of relief feeling, and of course it progressed down the road, but, yeah, I guess I started off with cigarettes. That's how it went. Exact order: cigarettes, marijuana, alcohol, and then, the benzo. And then, but when I took things into my own hands, it was Vicodin, and then Percocet, and then, the list goes on and on with the opiates.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because same, right? Like, I can relate to that too. I mean, it started with cigarettes sneaking in from my parents, and I eventually got caught, got grounded all summer long. And then with the weed. But for me, the first time I ever tried cocaine was exactly what you described with the Xanax. Like, that was my aha moment, that I just loved it and I wanted to do more. And I wasn't like addicted yet,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to like escape all the time and feel good all the time. So definitely that's where my addiction started. So let me ask you a question, kind of going back a minute, because I'm just curious about this. So my husband also was diagnosed with ADHD when he was younger, and they gave him Ritalin growing up as a kid. And then when he was 13 years old, they just completely cut him off. So do
Mm.
you feel like that medication when you were younger contributed to your addiction?
I think it created my addiction. I think some people are born with a disease. And then I don't think there's no rhyme or reason, like remedy for like, this is how it is. Like, there's just one way and that's all there is. I believe, like, after doing my step work and, just, having a good amount of time away from drugs and alcohol. Yeah, I believe that was the ground for everything, because in elementary school, I was put on this medication, and I remember hating myself if I didn't take the meds. I remember not being able to hold my head up in class, just eating everything, having no self-control, like just complete chaos when I didn't take the meds, and everyone forcing them on me. Take your meds, take your meds, take your meds, take your meds, and I remember saying, it makes me emotional, but I remember saying to my mom, like, I really don't like the person I am, without my meds. And it just completely, like when I like took a step back and I really looked at that, I was like, I was just like, holy, I don't know if I'm on a cuss, but I was like, holy crap, like, that's crazy. Like I did my step work and I seen that like literally written in between the lines, that the reason why I hated myself so much as a kid and it was so easy for me to go to drugs is because I was already being medicated. I was already putting a substance into my body to make me act, feel, and look a certain way in front of all my peers because nobody could stand me without my meds. I couldn't even stand me without my meds. I felt like I was super annoying. I would talk so much. I was constantly getting in trouble in school when I didn't take my meds. And then I remember rebelling. This girl, Candace, broke my heart when I was younger. And it was my first love. And I stopped taking my meds. And like what that does to your mental health, because that drug, anything we put in our body, even if we drink tap water versus purified water, does something to the chemistries in our brain, right? So like a part of my brain was completely depleted, and that's why I would feel so sluggish and tired and no focus and no self-control, because that pill was going in there and replacing like what my brain was supposed to produce. I don't think I ever had ADHD. I still don't think I even have it because I'm just like the type of person that if I don't like something, I'm not going to do it. And that's what a school was for me. I just was not interested in school. And that back then was considered ADHD because I didn't want to sit there and listen to these teachers and I didn't want to learn anything like in that direction. But when it came to building something, computers, taking something apart, I would spend hours trying to figure it out on my own, so if I had ADHD, I wouldn't be able to sit there for 5 hours trying to figure out how this works and what this piece does inside of a computer or like, just anything, so I don't know. I do believe, I do believe that was like the ground. That was like
Mhm.
ground zero for everything,
Yeah, that's so interesting. And just from what you described, there's so many hallmarks of addiction in that dependence from when you were younger.
Hmm.
So tell me about kind of the darker days, like where it got bad. And you said that you, when you were 27, like you addressed that one issue, but you had tried recovery before. So maybe
Yeah.
tell me about like the darker days and then your attempts in recovery.
Okay. Yeah. So, there's so many different levels of darkness, um, because I tried getting clean probably like a solid 15 times. And sometimes I would stay clean for 6 months. Sometimes I would stay clean for 9 months. One time I stayed clean for like 2 years. One time I stayed clean for a year. And then other times I would stay clean through detox and then I would get out and get high. But I would say the darkest times that I ever had was probably the last time was when I last got high. I lived in Baltimore City on my dad's couch. I talk about it a lot in my videos because it was the darkest. I mean, so there's two times that I could literally put right next to each other, right? The first time I lived in Salisbury, Maryland. I'll go back to that first. I lived in Salisbury, Maryland for a while. Um, I think I had like 6 months clean before that. I was in a TC program. I got out of the TC program. I stayed clean for like 3 months. So I had like a total of 9 months clean and I relapsed and I ended up moving to Baltimore, got strung out smoking. Can I talk about drugs? Okay. Yeah. So I got strung out smoking crack, just crack, right? And taking some Suboxone here and there, but real bad. And then me and this girl I was dating, we moved to Salisbury, Maryland. Well, the Eastern Shore, Cambridge, Maryland, where her family owned a house on the water. So it got us out of the city because we both were pretty bad off. And I stayed clean for like 5 months on Suboxone. And then I started a landscaping business. The landscape business did really good. It started falling. I guess I stayed clean for about a year. So after the landscape business stopped doing so good, and like a lot of my customers were older, so some of them died, some of them retired and moved to Florida. I started selling drugs, right? And I would go to Baltimore or Philly. I would pick the stuff up. I would bring it back, and I would be able to charge twice the amount of what sometimes 4 times the amount of what I paid for it. And because it was like a very condensed area that was far from any cities, so there wasn't much going in and out of there. So one day I wanted to get high, and I was like, the only way that I'm going to feel this, now this was the first time that I ever used the needle. And I said, the only way that I'm ever going to feel this is if I shoot it. Like, this was my mindset because I was on Suboxone. So I did it. I didn't feel anything, obviously, because of the Suboxone. And then I was like, a couple weeks went by and I had more stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm not taking a Suboxone today, and I'm going to do this. And then that just took off, right? That was like, it took off so bad that towards the end, after I'd robbed my girlfriend's mom, robbed my girlfriend, robbed my mom, robbed my friends, got pulled over for a CDS DUI, like all this stuff started piling up. Like, because I'm like the type that I'll take everything you got while you're sleeping and act like I never did anything and just keep, like smile on your face, like everything, right? Like when I'm like that. And I remember, like, so she had a house down the road too, from the house that we lived at on the water. That was her mom's house. We lived in her aunt's house and took care of her 95-year-old grandmother. And I remember going down to the big house saying I was going to work on the house to use. And I tried to fit as much as possible in the rig as I could, because, you can only fit a certain amount, but I tried fitting as much as I could before it was like not chunky. Right. And and try to offer myself right then and there. And I did it, and I woke up like 5 hours later, not knowing where I was, couldn't find my spoon, couldn't find the needle ever. I never found any of that stuff. I don't know what happened to it. I couldn't find anything. And then I felt like I did, like when I woke up, I used to have this feeling, like when I was abused when I was a kid, I get this feeling, right? When I woke up from like being out, I was probably dead, to be real with you. I was probably dead. And God was like, not today. I woke up and I felt that same feeling that I did when I was a kid. It was the weirdest experience that I ever had in my entire life. It was the only time I've ever felt like that. And yeah, I mean, I was like to the point where I was just ready to kill myself because I didn't feel like I was ever going to be able to get clean again. I didn't feel like I was ever going to be able to stop. I was doing like 25 caps a day from Baltimore. Like, it was bad. Like, I was doing like two caps every 2 hours, every 3 hours. I was running down to Baltimore and back, which was like a 3-hour drive every single day at 4 a.m, and it was rough. And then the second time I was living on my dad's couch, and man, I don't know. If I didn't have my mom and my dad, like my mom and my dad, me and my dad used together for a long time. So when I would use, he wouldn't kick me out, even though he got clean for a year. All his brothers and sisters died of heroin overdoses. And he's one of 7. So 6 of his brothers and sisters died from drugs. And a lot of my cousins have been in and out of prison from drugs. That whole side of my family's addicted to drugs, except for my dad nowadays. And then obviously my grandmother never was. But I was just like, I've never stole from my dad until this time. And I think it's funny now, but back then I didn't think it was very funny. But, I remember like doing shit and like just not wanting to do it, but knowing that I had no other option, like this was it, or else I was going to feel like shit. And I was not one to sit there and ever feel like shit. Like, I would hold on to whatever I had for the next day just so I could get that in me so I could go get more, because that physical dependency is just something serious. And, I was just like, I just never thought that I was ever going to be able to get clean. I didn't try to kill myself that time. But I did do drugs knowing that other people had just died from those drugs. Like me and my buddy got a cap. He got one. I got one. We did half of one. He fell out. I fell out. Next thing you know, the cops were called on us at his house. I had to leave, obviously, because the neighbor called the cops on me. He said that I was out front banging my head on the concrete, which I had no memory of. And then I came in there and he was on the ground. He said that I was like slapping him, trying to get him up. And then he like came to, his face was hurting, I guess. I don't know. And then the cops came in. So then the next morning, I knew this, how strong this stuff was. I did it that morning at my house. He did it that morning at his house. The only difference was I fell out for like 2 hours in a split position on my leg, to where I completely tore the tendon in my right leg and had to get surgery on my ankle to feel my foot again. And he fell out, didn't wake up for like a week. And we both did the same stuff, got it from the same guy, and he lost feeling in his legs completely for like a month. And I did that stuff knowing that was like, that could be the outcome, and I just remember my dad coming down the stairs, and that's what woke me up. I'm in the kitchen on the floor in a row home in the city. That's the back part of the house, right? And I like pull myself up on the washer and dryer. I can't use my right leg at all. It's completely numb because I've never done a split in my entire life other than that moment. And I was in that position with my head on my leg, like on my shin, for like probably 2 hours, I'll say. I won't dramatize it. It might have been longer because I did it. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning when I did it. And then my dad was coming down. It was like 6 or 7. And I didn't really have function of my leg. I used to have to like lock my knee in place and drag it behind me to get anywhere in the city. And I was like that for like a month. And then I ended up, going to treatment, like probably like a month and a half later. And my mom and my dad actually, they paid for drugs because I said I wasn't going to go to treatment. I wasn't going, right? It's just very easy to live in Baltimore City and always have something. It's very easy. It's not a hard job there at all. And my mom and my dad were like, well, we'll give you drugs for a week. And as soon as your policy is active, you can go to Florida. And I'm like, all right, bet. Like, I'm cool with that, And I was like, as long as you get me both, I want both, like both of them, They were like, all right, my mom left her coffee shop and she slept on the couch with me at my dad's house, where they're divorced. He's gay. She's, not, and she's married, but she slept on that couch with me. She lived in Delaware. I was in Baltimore at my dad's, and she slept there with me for a week straight, right next to me on this L-shaped couch. She slept here. I slept here. The dog slept down here. He's like 120-pound bull massive. And, yeah, like she never left my side. She didn't. If it wasn't for my mom if it was not for my mom not giving up on me, I wouldn't be here 100%. If it wasn't for my dad getting clean, there's no way I would be here. I'd be dead, because like that was like my last chance, 100%. I've never medically overdosed, like ever went to the hospital for it. I think I've just gotten lucky, a lot of the times, played it smart, in a sense. I like to think, but probably just luck.
Wow, that is so cool. It sounds like your parents love you so much. And I just have to say, like, you definitely have a purpose because you have lived through what you should not have lived through. So
Yeah.
obviously you are here for a reason. And that's the insanity of addiction, right? When it knocks somebody else out and you're like, oh, let me get some of that.
Right. Yeah, I know. And it's funny, is through my addiction, I wasn't really like that. Only at times. If I found out somebody overdosed from something, I wasn't like running towards it. I was like, I'll go to my other guy. Because my uncle and my aunt died from rat poisoning. They didn't actually die. Like it's what we call it where I'm from is a hot shot. And the dope boys, they give it to people when they think that either they know somebody that robbed them or they robbed them. or they rob their boys, which a lot of people get those hot shots and die, and then this was before car fentanyl really hit, like was really out in the open. This was when fentanyl was like, everybody knew about fentanyl. I mean, I was doing fentanyl when I was like 18, 17, like we were mixing the patches up and stuff, and turning them into powder and doing all different types of stuff back then, and then it was like actual pure fentanyl, and that I'm pretty sure that's what I did that put me down. Was probably, it could have been car fentanyl, but I don't really know. I knew that it got to the point where I just got crazy. Like I would just completely lose my mind. I don't know if I was doing flakka or either morphine or whatever. I like to think that I kind of knew what I was doing based off of how it would feel and how it would mix up. But the reality of it is I don't know, because I would completely lose my mind. Like I would be like that crazy guy walking down the street talking to himself, or like just singing out, like just loudly singing, running down the street, like I don't know. Weird stuff. I've done weird stuff.
I've actually seen fentanyl do weird stuff to people too. I think it has like a different effect on everybody.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
so you went to treatment, right? And
Mhm.
tell me, when you got to treatment, I mean, did you really want to go? Like, what switched for you when you got to treatment where you bought into recovery?
Mm. So I went to treatment. I did not want to go at all. I was being forced. I cried. I didn't want to go that far away. I didn't want to go to Florida. I'm like, used to the city at this time. I'm a city boy. I'd been there since I was like in and out of the city, my whole life, but I'd been there for a solid like 4 years at that point. And I don't know, man. I went to treatment, and I remember having these drug dreams, right? Because I also would take Suboxone on days that I didn't. So like I was addicted to Suboxone. I was addicted to like many things, right? When I detoxed, they put me on Suboxone. I went to detox. When I went to PHP, which is just partial hospitalization, which was inpatient here in Florida, for 30 days. I detoxed off with Suboxone. They gave me Neurontin at the time to like help me with the withdrawal symptoms of that, which it did a lot. And then and the anxiety and all that good stuff. I would have these dreams. I love to like, use cocaine through IV. That's my favorite thing to do, but I won't do it if I don't have heroin, right? So I would like, because I went on a solid just crack run, and it's the worst feeling in the world when you ain't got no more and nothing to come down with other than your own tears and your own feelings. I would have these dreams that I just used and I needed more. And I would wake up at the moment where I needed more. I would get the feeling in the dream, wake up and need more so bad that I would be crying. I'd wake up and just lay there in my bed around 3 other guys in treatment. There was like 4 of us in one room, and just cry, like, what am I going to do? Like I remember saying to this guy, Yankee Mike, I said, dude, I've been in here for 3 weeks, and I was in detox for a week and a half, almost 2 weeks, because I had abscesses on my stomach from the stuff that I was using. And, I was like, I'm like, dude, I don't feel like I'm ever going to be able to stay clean. I don't even want to. Like, I want to just get high for the rest of my life. I'm cool with being homeless and just using and never having anything in life. I'm like cool with that. And it was definitely, dude, I just took one simple suggestion for me. It worked in the beginning, like that early on, was just help other people. I had really great knowledge of the program. I'd been through the steps before. I had sponsored some guys before. I had really great knowledge of just how to get a job, how to act a certain way to get a job. I had really great knowledge of just like so many different things in life, carpentry work, anything, right? I knew how to wash dishes by hands where some kids didn't, because they were younger. I knew how to cook a little bit, things like that. So I would do those things. And by doing those things, other people seen it, right? And they would tell me like, yo, like you do that really, like they would pretty much show me things inside of myself that I couldn't see. I couldn't see any of this stuff. Like even though that I knew a little bit about stuff, I didn't really think that it was like a key attribute that I had. Like it was like something special, or like it even made me up of who I was, right? Like, but it showed me by doing those things, it showed me that, I'm very caring, I'm loving, I'm kind. It allowed me to take my mask off, right? Because like the person I was like, I'm doing shit for them, So like that's who I was in the streets. And then when I went to treatment, I got away from the drugs, that person went away, because I didn't have to be that person anymore, because the people that were around me actually cared about me. They actually loved me. They didn't really know me. They didn't know my past. It really just like, I find it very hard for me to get clean in my hometown where I'm from, because I felt like I had to be that person all the time, right? Like that's just who I was. That's what people knew me of. And if I tried to be some other way, they would think I was being sneaky or shady or whatever the case may be. And I couldn't ever let the real me out. So when I left and went to Florida, it really saved my life, because I was able to just be me and nobody have any prejudgment on me of who I really was. They seen what they seen, and that's how I kind of took it. It was like the same way I felt. Like I was always told myself, I was like, if somebody meets me on drugs, they'll never know that I'm high, because they won't be able to see the difference, because I'll be high when they meet me. So that's the thing.
Yeah. Oh, I love what you shared though. I mean, just helping other people helped you to see your attributes. And I think that's just so cool. So obviously you finished that treatment program. So did you stay in Florida? Did you go to a halfway house? Like, what did you do after that?
So I got kicked out of that place because I was just off the chain. Like I would just mess around a lot and like cuss out the techs. And they kicked me out. And then, so I went to IOP, obviously. I went to their IOP. They kicked me out of the IOP. Well, actually, first, I begged them to let me stay. I said, I can't leave. You can't kick me out. Please let me stay. They didn't kick me out. They put me back in PHP for a week. Then I went back to IOP, and literally 2 weeks after being, or like 3 weeks after being in IOP, I got kicked out. And then I went an hour south to another IOP called Living Right. So I went to Pathways. They got shut down like 6 months after I left. It was like, I guess it was considered to be not a good place. So, but it saved my life. So I'm like forever grateful for it. Because what I'm used to, that was nice, considered to what I was used to. So then I went to this place called Living Right, which was really nice. And yeah, I mean, I went through my step work, like I would meet up with my sponsor every single week. But I went to this IOP, and then down the road, I got kicked out from that IOP because I worked at another treatment facility and they got real weird. Right. And so I went to a cash pay halfway house and I stayed there, and it was so dirty there, but I was like, whatever, it just is what it is. I saved up my money. And like before I had a year clean, I was able to get my own place. Right. And mom showed up and she helped me out. So I think she paid the security deposit and I paid the first and the last. It was the first apartment that I ever had. It was just such a blessing. But the one thing that I really did right was like when I was in a bad place, I would call my sponsor or I would call somebody, and then I would follow that suggestion, like always follow that. Or I would, before I even got in a bad place, I would just follow the suggestions, right? I would go to like, for real, for me, like I went to 3 meetings a day, whether it was AA or NA, didn't matter. I met up with my sponsor once a week. I did H&I commitments. What else? I worked in treatment, so I was constantly showing up for others. I lied to the treatment facility about how much time I had. I don't know if they really knew, but it's like, oh yeah, I got like 9 months, and I didn't. I had like 4 months clean or something. I just wanted the job, and I think the rules were that you had to have at least 6 months. But regardless, they only say that for your own protection, not even for, because it is a very stressful job and you're around people that are like literally actively using, like you're sometimes picking up people that are getting high in your back seat on the way to the detox, like, and it's rough, because what are you going to do? You can't take the drugs from them, but then if you tell them you're not allowed in their car, more likely they're going to die, because then they'll be by themselves, so if they're going to overdose, I'd rather them overdose in my back seat where I can bring them back to life right away, rather than, but like I really allowed God in. I was like really, really searching for God. And with like my sponsor said to me, the one thing that helped me with God was just think about praying every day. Like you can make up your own concept. You don't have to believe the Bible or anything like that. So I didn't. And I would just think about praying. For me, it was like the universe, like what I put into the world is what I get out. So if I get close with the universe, everything will go my way, and it did for a while. Everything went the way that I wanted it kind of to go. Like things just fell into place from that moment forward. And I didn't stress about really anything. I mean, there were moments where like I was like, full of anxiety and things like that. But I would just take the right steps, like if I had a problem, I would talk about it. I didn't let ego get in the way at all. Like no matter how much time I've ever had, it was just like 8 months ago, I walked into a meeting. I hadn't been to a meeting in a while, probably 3 months. I walked into a meeting where I knew every single person in there, and I laid it out on the floor that I was completely miserable. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have my driver's license. I had no friends. I've been by myself, like just crying about everything, just in not a good headspace, not wanting to get high, but just not wanting to live. Like no obsession or anything, but even if I did have an obsession, I would still talk about it. I think that's like some of the biggest reasons why some people relapse is because they just don't have anybody that they can really just talk to without getting feedback or just talk to. For me, like when I'm going through shit, I really don't want feedback. I really don't want to know what I'm supposed to do right then and there. I just kind of want to get it off my chest. And then I call and I ask my sponsor, well, so now what should I do? Like he knows, he knows. He's like, all right, well, go pray. Or, I'm like, yeah. Hang up on him, or, whatever. He knows though. He's been my sponsor for a long time, and he's been somebody that never turned my back on me. But some people experience where they get really close to a sponsor and that sponsor starts getting high, and then you got to find another sponsor. I would always recommend his sponsor, or like somebody in your sponsee family, and that's why I believe the rooms are good, can benefit. And that's why I believe that people in the rooms need to be more accepting of people on Suboxone or marijuana, because, you're missing a whole group of people. You're missing out on helping, because that's just what it is. That's just life. It's not going to be this cookie cutter that you imagine in your mind. That's not even in our book.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. And you know what? The way that things are changing today, I mean, people are getting medicated assistance treatment in detox and in jail and in treatment centers. And what we really want is for people to get that healing that I do 12 steps too, the healing that you get from doing the steps. So I think we should be all inclusive. And I just love how you advocate for that on your channel. That's one thing that I just love so much about your content. You always advocate for that. And that is so cool.
Thank you. Yeah. I really just want to get that, like, I got people around here in the rooms that just look at me and they're like, I'm like, so what? I'm like, get with it or get out of here,
Right.
Stop pushing people away, dude. Because like I'm like very, very I'm like, I will speak my mind, like I won't try to hurt anybody's feelings or personally attack anyone or call them names or just beat them down or anything like that. I just kind of like try and direct them into like a better mindset for themselves, because like I've had people call me up. They're like, dude, I can't get over the fact that I don't think that people on Suboxone are clean. And I'm like, why are you so worried about it? Are you on Suboxone? And they're like, no. I'm like, So you're literally allowing your disease to just beat you up right now. You're sitting here stressing and freaked out over somebody else saying that they're clean because they're on Suboxone. I'm like, bro, you need to take a look at that. Like, that has nothing to do with that person. What are you doing under the covers? Like, like, what are you doing? Because you must be doing something. Because anytime I look at somebody and I don't like them, it's because I see something that they're doing that I do, or like
Yes.
something like that. So like, what's going on? Do you want to get high? Like, what's up? And it's sad to say, but anybody that's ever called me with that was in the program that struggled with that actually did end up relapsing down the road. And it's very true. It holds true, and that's why I
Mhm.
tell people all the time that if they go to the meetings around Suboxone or marijuana, whatever, like if somebody says that to you, give it 5 months, just stick around, because more than likely that person's not going to be around in 5 months, and it's sad that it's that way, but it really is. But the saddest part about that is just because that person said that one thing to that person in front of 30 people, that person will never show up to any other meeting again in fear that they'll see these other people,
Yeah.
whether what those other 30 believe or not, you know, because
Mhm.
we're easily influenced, especially early in recovery. In my first 2 years, I was super easily influenced. Anybody that I found out lied to me, it broke my heart.
Me
Like,
too.
oh my God, I believed you, like,
Yeah, I thought everybody were these like perfect people practicing spiritual principles all the time.
I know, I
I
know.
know
That's what,
better now.
yeah, that's the image that they give off. Now,
Right.
yeah, now I know. Now I know. Now it's
Yep.
like,
Yeah, I mean, we're all human, right? I mean, everybody's fucked up in their own way. I mean, we're just out
everybody.
here trying to get another day clean, one day at a time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%,
Yeah.
100% agree with that.
So tell
100.
me, what does life look like for you today? Like, what are some of the challenges that you've overcome in your recovery, and what does it look like today for you?
I'd say my biggest challenge that I overcome was losing my driver's license after having 4 years clean, having a kid, 2 kids, not being able to pay child support for my son, not being able to see my son. Like the baby mom and me were not on good terms, but I think 90% of the reason why we weren't really on good terms is because I hated that I left him. And I would just, every little thing she would say that was truth would just completely destroy me. And then I would run away farther, and I would run away farther, and I would run away farther. And then I took a step back for a while, and I really needed that because I just hated myself. And now I talk to him now, but I still struggle with it because I sometimes don't even feel worthy of like talking to him, and he's older now, he's like 7. Um, and I get my daughter every single weekend, and I love her. I love my son more than anything, and I love her more than, like, a daughter's love is different than a son's love. It's like a different kind of love, like you have kids, right?
Yes, 2
Yeah.
boys.
Okay. So yeah, but you get it though. Like, it's, what I mean? Just like a mother loves a son differently than a father loves a son, it's
Mhm.
different. So not one's better than the other. My daughter definitely favors me, where my son definitely favors his mom, but of course she's been there most of the time, right? So there's been like a solid year where I didn't really talk to him. Nothing. I didn't do anything because I felt like she was against me. I felt like every time I flew up there, she wouldn't let me see him when I was supposed to see him. And there were times of that, And then I lost my job. I didn't have my driver's license. Nothing would work for me this year. Nothing that I did. Usually any job I get, I'm one of the best or I'm the third best, right? This time I was worse than the worst. Like, anything that I did, I couldn't make it pan out. I couldn't make it work. I couldn't make it make money. I could not figure out how to make money this year. Like, it was just something against me. And it's weird because I read into my Chinese zodiac sign, which I don't really believe in zodiac signs too much, but the Chinese zodiac of the year I was born, this year, it said that no matter what I did, there was not going to be one battle that I was going to be able to beat except for the battle that I've been fighting my whole life, which is crazy, which really stuck out to me. And I was like, what? You know, like, why didn't I read this? I wouldn't have stressed myself out so much. But, you know, now today, like, I have my license back. I've had it back for like a month because I just paid my insurance, which was high because I have 18 points on my license. So they made me get an SR22. So I paid my insurance. My car's almost paid off. My truck got repossessed a year ago. I had to sell all my four-wheelers. I had to stop racing. This is a direct result of losing my license. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment because me and the mother of my daughter didn't get along. Well, it's not that we didn't get along. We never actually fought. We weren't really in love with each other. We got in a relationship in recovery, lusted over each other, and then had a baby within like 3 months of being together. Right. So like, you know, but we did really good together. We're best friends. Like, I could call her and tell her anything. She could call me and tell me anything. And she does sometimes, you know, and we look out for each other. And she's brought Skylar to me every single weekend and dropped her off and then picked her up, you know, this whole time. And she's been awesome. And, you know, now me and my buddies started a solar company. I work in treatment. So right now we're building the company. I only own 5%, but 5% is a lot when you see how much solar actually makes, the amount that it actually makes. So I was like, cool with that. And then we have like 6 partners, including me, but it's like a lot. There's a lot to it. You know, there's a lot that goes into this, and each one of us, we bring a specific skill set to the table, which I don't see it failing. We learned it at another job, and after we learned it, we molded it into our own. I haven't been paid in like 3 months because when solar gets on the roof, that's when I get paid. So with construction, everything takes 30 days, up to 30 days, right? Like, you got the permitting, you got the site survey, you got all this stuff. And then once glass hits roof, that's when the funds are released. So I'm waiting on like 4 or 5 jobs right now from the other company. And they're being really cool about what's going on, what we decided to do. It just doesn't make sense in Florida to work under somebody. It really doesn't, unless you work for a company and all you're doing is setting leads and going and closing them, right? But it doesn't make sense for us to do all the back end work and everything an owner would do and still have somebody that's making money off of us when we're doing their jobs, you know? So, and they understood that. And, you know, I'm like extremely grateful, man. I'm grateful that I am just able to drive. I can just go to a meeting when I want to. I can just do, and it's not like this long task. My most favorite thing is that when I get my daughter, I can go wherever I want to go with her, and I can just hang out. I don't have to like bring a book bag, put her on the back of the bike, take an hour's bike trip there, then play with her for an hour and be completely dead, and then have to ride an hour back with her on the back. You know, like, that's hard. It's not easy. And you know, I'm just so great. She still wants to go for bike rides though, but I'm just grateful. Like, I don't even care if I'm completely broke. You know, like, this last month, I've sold a lot of my weights, sold other stuff, you know, and like, whatever, I just know, I know that next year is going to look completely different for me. You know, I know that I want to be able to be like, Mom, you don't have to work anymore. Dad, you don't ever have to worry about money again. My grandma, come move down here with me, like, just bring the whole family, make sure my son's set up for the rest of his life, and his mom. So where she doesn't have to worry about money or even work if she doesn't want to, you know, like, that's just the type of person I am. Like, I would make sure that the mother of my son, even though we've had our differences, I would make sure she was good financially, you know, like, not going to pay just the bare minimum of what they tell me to pay. Like, screw that. We can get rid of that. I'll buy you a house, you know, like, that's where I want to be, you know, mentally. Like, that's where, like, I envision myself in like 2 years, you know, as being able to like buy a home for myself, definitely buy a home for her, definitely, and make sure the mother of my daughter's good. I mean, she does good for herself, so she'll have a house probably before I can afford to buy her one. But it's funny too, because I got her into life insurance. I used to do life insurance. She does it way better than me. I got her into it, and it's so weird. It's like that's where she was supposed to be. She does so good. Like she's just a monster at it, and she likes the company she works for. She's been with them for like a year now, and she's killing it. She's doing good. This just wasn't my year. This was my year of learning. That's what it was.
Yeah, and you stayed clean no matter what. So I
Yeah.
think that says something. You've still been a successful year because you didn't get high.
Yeah. It's like not an option. I don't allow
Yeah.
it to be. I just don't really allow it to be an option. I really don't. I know it's not going to fix. We know this shit. We know, like, we know it's not. And I literally take it one day at a time. Like I do. I do not think about what tomorrow is going to happen. I'm like, God's got me. It's going to be all right. When I start, dude, sometimes I'll be laying in my bed at night and I'll get these unrealistic fears and just overwhelming feelings of anxiety, like weird stuff. Oh my God. What if my daughter would have fell down those steps we walked down earlier and she would have cracked her head open?
I
Oh my
do
God.
that.
Like weird stuff. I think about kids. I like hear a story of a guy throwing his baby off a bridge or something. I'm like, oh my God. What if Skylar got thrown off a bridge? Oh my God. Like and then I have to get up. I'm like, I can't lay next to her because she sleeps in bed with me when she's here. I got a tiny 1-bedroom apartment with a big king size mattress in there, and she sleeps cuddled. Right. I probably would let her sleep with me even if I had 2 rooms and she had her own room, but we share one pillow. It's a big pillow. You can't even see, but it's big. It's a big pillow, and she doesn't even sleep on it much, but yeah. I'm like, I can't she'll wake up. She's going to feel this anxiety, I'm like, I can't, I got it. And then I'm not going to, if I lay there with anxiety, I won't be able to fall asleep for like 5 hours. I won't be able to calm myself. I have to come out here and watch TV. I get on my knees. Sometimes it gets so bad and I just pray. I'm like, God, just take this away from me. Please just get rid of this. And there were times where I questioned God this year. Like, what are you doing? Like, you don't hear me anymore, motherfucker. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what? I ain't talking to you no more. And I would go like a week without getting on my knees and praying spitefully, like, screw you, mad because because finances are real, and it's like, it's like when you go from, like, I did really well for myself 2 years ago, like really, really, really well for myself, and had a lot of stuff and lost all of it because I didn't plan for this to ever happen, because I was stupid. It had nothing to do with God. God was like, I'm going to show you it's possible. I'm going to let you lose all of it, so then you can see how strong you are. So when you get it back, you know not to do that stupid shit again. So that's what I think now. That's how I like believe. I've believed that this whole year, but there were times where I just didn't want to face that, like, you go through it sometimes,
Yeah. Well, I'm so proud of you. I mean, you just got your driver's license back, and I seen you like riding the bike with your daughter and posting videos, and now you got your license back. So it's almost 2023 and it is going to be a great year.
Dude, it is. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so good.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming and telling your story tonight. So final thoughts.
Yes.
So if somebody out there is watching this right now, maybe they've relapsed over and over and over again, and they feel like they're never going to be able to get recovery. Maybe they haven't even found recovery ever. What would you say to them?
Man. Just don't give up. Go to treatment, shut up, sit down, and just get out of your own way. That's all it is. It's really all it is. And it sucks because some people are really, really smart, and that's their biggest downfall. Is the smartest people I've met have the hardest time staying clean. And the not so smartest people I've met have the easiest time staying clean. And I'm an overthinker and an overanalyzer. So I know that when somebody told me to just sit down, stop trying to figure everything out, shut up and follow suggestions, I know that worked for me. But he didn't say it in an aggressive way. He just was just like, dude, like, this is serious. So just stop thinking that you know what to do. Stop thinking you know what the next move is. This isn't the streets. You don't have to worry about one more tomorrow. Only thing you got to worry about is staying clean today. And even if you sat on your hands all day long and watched TV and didn't leave the couch, at least you stayed clean. He's like, that's how simple it is, you know? And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's so true. It is so simple. We tend to like overcomplicate it, but just don't pick up one day at a time. I love what you said. Don't
Yeah.
give up, sit down, listen, stop over analyzing and overthinking. I'm an overthinker too, so I totally get that. But again, I just thank you so much. So tell everybody where they can find you. I'm going to link all of your accounts underneath the video, but just tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me I'm on everything pretty much. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I'm going to start doing more stuff. I'm just trying to like, you know, work that out with timing and my work schedule. But, you know, as Recovering Rob, it's like that on everything. You can even, I have a Snapchat. It's Yat2s1. It's not Recovering Rob, but that was like my old Instagram name. Like tattoos, but with a Y in the front, you know. I used to have a tattoo shop back in the day. So me and my buddy. So I named my Instagram Tattoos. But yeah. But yeah, that's those are all the platforms I'm on.
Awesome. And I'm going to link them down below as well. So
Yeah,
again, thank you so much for telling your story. Thank you guys for watching. I hope everybody has a great night. We'll see you back again soon on the Hope Shot Recovery.